Hello everybody and welcome to Zentangle Project Pack number 26. This is day 6 and this is Julie Willand and I'm so excited to get tangling with you all today. Through this entire project pack we've been exploring these wonderful Zendalas that are found in the Zentangle Project Pack number 26 featuring some brand new strings. This project pack is available on Zentangle.com and also from some of our CZTs all around the world. But if you don't have this project pack, as always, we encourage you to follow along with what you have at home. This entire series has been focused on these strings, and it's been such a great experience to really dive into this step of the Zentangle method. Before we begin, I just have a quote I wanted to share with you all. Constraints are often the driving force between true innovation and creativity. And Tim Brown said that. And I think during this project pack, we've definitely come to agree with Tim. So welcome everybody. We're going to jump right in today. The materials I'm using are the Zendala featuring this string. This one's really cool. I've got my pens and pencils here. So I've got my white charcoal and my graphite pencil with some tortillons. The Micron 03 in black we've been using. This pen has been one of my new favorites. And then I've got some Koi water brush pens here. We all might have some different colors, so don't worry if yours don't match mine. I just grabbed these ones today. I have a paintbrush, and then I also have some water ready off to the side here. So we are going to begin with the first step of the Zentangle method, which is gratitude and appreciation. So we're going to take a moment to pause, to get comfortable in our workspace, to clear our space of any distractions we might have, and take a moment to express gratitude for this time we have to tangle together, for these strings and limitations that are driving our creativity, and for all the other things, both big and small, that you are grateful for today. And then when you're ready, you can pick up your micron. And since we're working with these pre-strung tiles, we're going to skip the steps of dot, border, and string and just head right to tangle. And I'm first going to focus within these areas right here. When we first began playing with these strings and Molly showed me these tiles that we were going to be working with, this was the string that caught my attention first. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I said, I want that one. And so it's been a lot of fun to play around with. And I'm going to pick any one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to start, I guess you could call this Marsu. We're just not working in like a spiral here. We're just going to add some bands that go all the way around this shape here. When we meet this other shape, we're going to draw behind it, and we're just going to do this on one of them. So if you get ahead of me, don't fill everyone like that. But if you want to watch me for a moment, I'm going to begin down here at the corner, and I'm going to add a curved line that goes from one side of the string to the other. And then I'm going to leave some space, and I'm going to aura that line, creating a curved band that goes across my space. connecting them, the ends to each other. Not perfectly straight, slightly curved. And then I'm going to fill the space with ink. And then I'm going to move further up my shape, and I'm going to repeat the same thing creating these bands that go across my shape. And filling them in. Doesn't have to be perfect. I almost prefer when the area is not completely filled with black. There's a little bit of the white peeking through. And I'm going to continue this as I go around my shape, adding these curved bands. So there I have finished my bands, and I'm just going to go back and I'm going to add an aura on each side of these bands. And so there we have this big drama tangle, because this tangle has a lot of area of solid black. So I'm going to balance it next in the one right next to him with a texture tangle, and that is going to be Fife. And this one can be done, you can do this in a different way. You can follow along with me and do it. The Fife is going to follow this curve shape, or you can do a straight grid within the shape. If you want to watch me and see how I approach it, and then you can, if you're familiar with the tangle, you can kind of approach it however you want. If you're not familiar, you can just follow along with me. But I'm going to begin by putting some dots somewhat equidistant apart that kind of go down the center of my space, but they follow that curve just like that. And then I'm going to go to this one that's kind of in the middle, in the biggest part of my space. And I'm going to add one kind of the same distance above and below it. And then I'm going to add one above and below that one on that string line. But for these ones at the end where my space gets real narrow, I'm not going to do that. And if you did, that's fine. You can either use them or you can ignore them as we go along. I'm then going to connect this dot to this dot with a line that curves outward on either side. So it creates this kind of rice shape. And I'm going to do that to each of my lines, or each of my dots, I'm sorry. When I get to these dots that don't have them on the string, I'm just going to kind of imagine that if I kept going, they would be there. You can see I'm drawing behind this shape. And then I'm going to connect these center dots with the same shape. And following that curve. Up here, I'm going to do the same thing. And you see how my rice shapes are getting a little larger where my shape is getting larger. So I'm just using this shape to kind of guide me. I'm going to go back to the middle here. I like to start in the middle because that's where it's biggest, so it's easiest to see what we're doing before I move through those narrow spaces. And I'm going to draw another rice shape that goes from this corner to this corner of this space. I'm going to turn my tile, and now I'm going to draw one that goes from this corner where we just ended to this corner right here. So they're diagonal but alternating directions. And I'm going to do this in all my shapes. So you see how when I get to these like narrow spaces, it's kind of hard to see or fit them in. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm imagining this one goes from here to here. So we're just kind of imagining what it might look like as it narrows here, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then, so I'm going to go like look at this first one that I drew from here to here. So then below it, I'm going to go from here to here. From this point to that point. And again, alternating directions. And then I'm going to go back to this first one I drew again. I'm going to draw another one that goes in the opposite direction, drawing behind that first rice shape. So there I have the Tangle Fife. And we're going to go back and add a little detail that I really think brings this whole tangle together. We're going to go look at each one of these rice shape pieces. And I'm going to add a little thatching, just these wispy black lines. From each of the points. And I'm going to do this to each one. So there I have all of my fife, and you can just see how much that thatching really just transforms this tangle. It is a lot of fun. And you can see, like I know as we got to these more narrow spaces, things got a little murky with all our shapes, but you don't even notice anymore. And that's really the beauty of the Zentangle method. So next, as we move along, in the space right next to it, we're going to do the Tangle Crescent Moon, but kind of a little variation of it. So if you want to watch what I'm doing first, you can. And I'm going to start at one end here. I'm going to draw my little ladybug shape in this corner. And then I'm going to aura it. And aura. And aura. And then I'm going to start building my crescent moon and auras on top of one another. So I'm going to start in this corner right here. Kind of looks like the top of an ice cream cone. And then here I'm going to go to the opposite side. And I'm going to aura. And I'm going to keep going, filling this entire space as I go with these crescent moons in their auras. Letting each one that I put down before guide where I put my next one. So there we have our crescent moons filling the shape. And so now we have one more. And so we're going to go back to more of a texture tangle. So we had drama, texture, drama. And now it's going to be a type of reticula and fragments here. So our reticula is going to be, or reticulum rather, is going to be rather simple. I'm just going to start by drawing a line about down the middle of my shape, and you can see it kind of curves out at the top and the bottom. This is just to give it a little character here. And then I'm going to move down my space, and I'm going to draw another one. And then I'm following the curve here, the shape, so it's closer together at the bottom than it is at the top. And I'm going to imagine it's going underneath, and the next one would probably be about here, so I'm just going to pretend it's there and then move further down my shape, and I'll draw my last one right here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And once you have your reticulum down, I'm going to turn my tile so I'm looking at it like this. This is the bottom I'm going to be working with. And I'm going to go to this top corner, and I'm going to draw a curved line to the opposite corner. And then I'm going to aura and aura. All about equidistant apart. And then I'm going to go back to this first curved line that I drew, and I'm going to draw a ladybug shape, not taking up the whole space, but like 2/3 of it. And then I'm going to aura and then I'm going to go ahead and fill this space in with ink. So that is the fragment we're going to be working with, and I'm going to alternate it. So in this space to the right of it, I'm going to start up in this corner and draw a curved line to the opposite one, and then aura. I'm then going to draw the ladybug shape and aura those. And I'm going to fill each space with this fragment, mirroring it each time. And just like with our fife, once we get to those real narrow parts, you're just gonna have to be creative and imagine how it might look if you can't fit the whole fragment in there. So there we have our fragments in, and we have all 4 of those spaces done. So this is already coming together really nicely. I love the balance of the drama with the texture. The next thing we're going to do is work in these spaces up here. And we're going to add a tangle. It's kind of peppery, it's kind of like senna, it's kind of like the top of mycelium. But it's just a series of auras with weights on the bottom. And so I'm going to start at the corner here where these 2 spaces meet. And I'm drawing this slightly curved line. And then I'm going to add some weight to the bottom of it. And then I'm going to aura and add weight. And again, each time I'm starting from the same point, but then moving further along my string. Remembering to turn your tile if you need to. Remembering to breathe. And then I'm going to turn my towel and I'm going to do the same thing in each of these spaces. And I'm going to leave these spaces blank for right now. And we're going to add some color. So if you want to join me, you can grab some koi brushes. It doesn't matter which color. I've got a little scrap piece of paper and some water here. And I'm just going, what I like to do when working with these koi pens is put the ink down on another piece of paper first and get it real wet and then transfer it onto my tile. So I'm going to go, I'm going to add it kind of to the top here and towards the middle. But you can, I want it to be a lot darker up along the edge. I'm going to start to blend in some blue on the bottom here. Again, we have this purple on the top, and then it kind of blends into the blue on the bottom. I'm going to add some more blue. I find because this paper absorbs these pens so quickly, you want to get them wet right away. There you can see, and it looks a lot, it might look a lot darker here in person than it does on the camera, but you can see it on your own tile. And so working with the colors that we have, we're just going to kind of do the same thing. Blending them all together. This pink is going to be great. And then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do each of these initial shapes that we tangled, these like moon shapes. And I'm going to leave everything else untouched by the color. So there I have all my koi brush down. Got the pinks and the purple and the blue all kind of blended in there. So we're just going to take a moment. We want to let this dry completely before we move on with our shading. So go take a stretch break and come back when this is all. Hello everybody, dry. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed your little break. You're back refreshed. Your tile is dry. And we are going to begin shading it. I'm going to start with my graphite pencil here. I also have my white charcoal and a tortillon for each of them. And I'm going to go back to these shapes right here. And I'm going to be like heavy-handed with my shading, and I'm also going to work in layers. So really just trust the process as we go along. But I'm going to add quite a bit of graphite right on top of this watercolor. On the top and bottom edges here. And you don't need to add it to the black. Because it's already dark. And I'm also going to add some along this other shape here, if there's any white space. And I'm going to pick up my tortillon and I'm going to begin to soften it, pulling more towards the middle, but again, leaving some white space. Well, it's watercolor now, but some unshaded space there because we need the contrast of both light and dark. And then I'm going to go back with my white charcoal, and again, pretty heavy-handedly, I'm going to add a highlight here. And then I'm going to move on to my fife here. And so I'm actually going to do this in 2 layers. I'm first going to add a little bit of graphite where all this enthatching is. And then once I have that shading on each of those rice shapes, I'm then going to do the top and bottom like I did on this one. Again, just to keep that same shape and give it that same dimensionality. I'm going to go back with my white charcoal and I'm going to go back to these little rice shapes and I'm going to add some highlight in the middle of each one. So in between where I put that graphite down. And then I forgot to do this the first time I was with my graphite, but here where this shape over that one, we want to add some graphite. So just push it to the bottom. And then with my crescent moon here, I'm going to take my graphite, and at first I'm just going to put a little bit of graphite where these crescent moons meet their auras. And this is just light, it's just the tiniest bit on each one. And then I'm going to go back with my graphite, and again, that top and bottom of this space, being pretty heavy-handed. It looks like maybe on camera it looks darker than it is on my tile, but don't be afraid of the graphite. This tile, my vision was a lot of shading, a lot of drama and shape and dimension. And then I want to soften it, bringing it to the middle, but again, not all the way because we need that contrast. And then with my white charcoal, go back and do that highlight. And then this one here, fragments in reticulum, looks like someone's staring back at us here. But I'm first going to add some graphite along these bars here that separate our fragments. And once I've done that, I'm also going to add some where these auras meet the other set of auras. Again, go back with my tortillon. And as always, when we're shading, if you see another opportunity that you want, I encourage you to take it. There's so many different ways to shade because, like, we're not working with light sources or anything like that in Zentangle. We are just looking to create this depth and dimension and these areas of light and dark. I'm going to add along this shape and then again on the top and bottom. Yeah, we're just adding areas of light and dark so you may see other opportunities on your tile. And once you have shaded all of these shapes, I'm going to go to these tangles and we're going to add some graphite to them as well. So I'm going to first add some graphite along the edge there, and then along those other shapes. And we have a lot of graphite on this tile, so if you wanted to put like a scrap piece of paper down over this as you're shading, because you can see I'm getting some graphite there on my hand, that is always an option. And I'm going to do the same thing to each one. And then with the graphite that I have on my tortillon, I'm just going to go all the way around, kind of to create this continuous and cohesive band of graphite. And then if you want, you can take your white charcoal and you can add some on that line of graphite. Just to give it a little highlight. And so now I'm done with my shading. And I'm going to go back with my black micron. And I'm going to go to the center here. And I want to bring all of this together somehow. But I also like the blank space in the middle because it's pretty heavy everywhere else on the tile. So I'm actually just going to add some love here and kind of bring these shapes down just like that, reinforcing the string that was already there. Continue those tangles just a tad, but also just making it black in the middle pencil. So you can see how that just kind of brings it all together. And I might just add the tiniest bit of graphite along those black lines I've just put down. Take a moment to admire your tangle, maybe hold it out at arm's length and turn it this way or that. Pick up your micron again and find somewhere you add your chop. You can turn it around, sign it. Pause here for a moment of gratitude and appreciation. And we can't wait to see what you create with these lessons and where we will go next for day 7. So we will see you guys all then. Thank you so much.